the most powerful invasion air force ever launched. Some of the 11,000 planes that opened the path through the so-called impregnable Atlantic Wall.
Hello, this feature is about a more humanistic part of D-Day. As we know, D-Day is one of the deadliest wars of all times, but what the soldiers didn't know was that behind all the sacrifices they were making, there were millions of people dying and suffering just for their looks, ethnicity, religion, among others. As D-Day was happening, the Holocaust was secretly taking place and no one really knew except for the Germans. About 400,000 soldiers died in battle, but comparing numbers, about 6 million people died in concentration camps. It was a time where exercising the basic human rights could have made you lose your life. People were living hidden and in fear. No one really knew how to survive. It was a time when everyone was alone, no protection, no liberty, and no human rights. This event violated the human rights in every way possible. Human rights were written in 1948. This means that during this period of time, people didn't have the right to defend themselves to greater powers like the German regime. People had to obey to survive. So the big question is, if D-Day hadn't happened, how many more lives would have been lost because of the Germans? If we analyze everything and compare and contrast these events, many more Jews' lives would have been abused and tortured if the soldiers wouldn't have risked it all. The Holocaust lasted over 4 years, and in those 4 years, they managed to kill 6 million people. If we divide 6 million into 4 years, approximately 1.5 million people died per year. So if D-Day wouldn't succeed and the Holocaust would keep on going, we could say that approximately a minimum of 1.5 million people a year would keep on dying. There's also another factor to consider. Over the time, Hitler would have gained more power, and in this case, more power means more deaths. So we can't know for sure how many people would have been lost, but we can know that at least 1.5 million people per year. As horrendous as this event was, there was an overall denial regarding the death that happened. The first denial was by Alexander Radcliffe. He wrote that the concentration camps were dreamed by the Jews and that they had faked newsreel footage. It is incomprehensible how, given all the evidence collected by the Department of Holocaust Studies, people can actually believe this event never happened. This event brought with it many problems that affected everyone. Men were subject to compulsory rough work and to a war that had no end. Many women were completely separate from their families and children and were physically and mentally abused. In this war, there was no selection when it came to killing. The Nazis were very aggressive with both women and men, including children and eldest. Given the circumstances that happened in this historical period, there were little to none advantages in diversity. As I mentioned earlier, the war of women and men was very hard. However, much suffering could have been avoided if families had not been separated. Children would have the consolation of their mothers, and mothers would not live so worried about the children. So, without D-Day, history would be really different in so many ways. Tons of lives were lost, but not as many as the one who would have perished. So my personal opinion on this is that D-Day needed to happen to put an end to Hitler and all of his regime. Because many people were dying, many people were deprived from their life or from freedom of expression or for freedom of everything. So in my opinion, this was for a greater good. I'm not saying that we don't care about the lives lost on D-Day, but it's not even close to what could have been lost and was lost because of the Holocaust and Hitler. So I think this was like something that needed to happen, and it was really intelligent from the Allies to plan something like this, because we don't know what would Hitler do next if we let him keep on going. So I respect all the soldiers, and I admire their bravery for doing this, because deep down I know that they think that too. The ones who lost their life, they were thinking of the greater picture. So they were saving 100 lives from their own, of their own. Thank you.